Mr. Black.
Thank you, I'd just like to say I welcome the Government's Housing Action Plan, but I would also like to highlight the concerns expressed by the ISPCC recently, bearing in mind the number of children in emergency accommodation increased by 67% in June compared to the same month last year. There are hundreds of children living in emergency accommodation, and the state must take measures to make that accommodation as safe as is possible. The ISPCC has consistently called for physical and management standards for emergency accommodation. Emergency accommodation is provided on a contract basis between the state and a commercial provider, and those contracts should contain physical and management standards that hotels and B&B accommodation are obliged to meet to ensure the protection of children. These include Garda vetting of hotel staff, access to the safe area to play, access to drinking water, minimum physical and management standards. Not having these in place is simply not good enough. 1,394 children are living in hotels and B&B accommodation in Dublin at present, and this has inherent risks which are not being addressed. While the Housing Action Plan addresses house building and finance, it is also essential that structures are put in place to support people who are forced to live in emergency accommodation. The safety and children living in emergency accommodation is of the utmost importance, and all measures must be taken to ensure their safety. I would also welcome the renewed conversation on building relationships in the island of Ireland in light of the decision by England and Wales to vote for Brexit and the decision of Scotland and the North to vote to remain in the EU. I know myself from my contacts in the voluntary and community services in the North that they are very concerned about the North being taken out of the EU, and also by the people of Rathlin Island, Cathaoirleach, where my father comes from, who were, I suppose, talking about having their own little independent island up there just to get away from it all. But anyway, I am pleased that the Taoiseach has not ruled out the triggering of the clause in the Good Friday Agreement and deals with the border poll, especially when there was an economic research recently that was launched in New York, led by Dr. Kurt Hubner, who is the Director of the Institute of European Studies at the University of British Columbia, saying that the unification of Ireland could potentially deliver $36.5 billion for the island in the first 8 years. Thank you, Cathaoirleach.
Thank you.